KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
It was a good day Sunday for both of LA's NFL teams. We start with the Chargers. They got a 29-yard touchdown run from running back J.K. Dobbins with 18 seconds left in the fourth quarter to get past Cincinnati 34-27. The Chargers are 7-3 for the first time since 2018. The Rams are 5-5 after a 28-22 road win at New England. Clippers guard James Harden is now number 2 on the NBA's all-time list for three-pointers. Harden hit 2 3-pointers last night in the Clippers win over Utah to move past Ray Allen. The 35-year-old Harden has 2,975 three-pointers. Steph Curry has the record with 3,782. Curry and the Warriors are in town tonight to play the Clippers at the Intuit Dome. Top 5 college football teams in this week's AP Top 25 poll: Oregon, Ohio State, Texas, Penn State, and Tavis Smiley's Indiana Hoosiers. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
Feeding Our Friends on the Outside will be hosting its 15th annual Feeding the Homeless event in Greater Los Angeles on Sunday, November 10th from noon until at 11129 South Central Avenue in Los Angeles. If you would like to donate or volunteer, please call 310-981-6377 or email them at feedingourfriends05@gmail.com. feedingourfriends05@gmail.com. It's the 15th anniversary of Feeding Our Friends on the Outside, Sunday, November 10th from noon until 11129 South Central Avenue in Los Angeles. For more information, call 310-981-6377. 310-981-6377. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Unsung hero, riding in the Rego, trying to stay legal. My daughter found Nemo, I found a new primo. Yeah, you know how we do it for the people and the struggle of the brothers and the folks, the lovers of the dope. Experiments to discover hope, scuffle for notes. The rougher I wrote, times was harder. Went from rock started to the voice of a martyr. Why white folk focus on dogs and yoga? My people on the low end trying to ball or get over. Lyrics are like liquor for the fallen soldier. From the bounce to the ounce, it's all our culture. Every day we hustling, trying to get them customers. Law, we ain't trusting them. Thick bras, we lusting them. Sick and tired of punching it. I look on the bus at them. When I see them struggling, I think I'm touching them.
I'm Tavis, Smiley. Glad to have you with us today. In this hour of our program, 2 conversations as promised on the B side of this hour. Baltimore City is the latest municipality to form a Reparations Commission. Dr. Ray Winbush, director of the Institute for Urban Research at Morgan State University, joins us to explain on the backside of this hour. We commenced this hour in conversation with Chicago Teachers Union President Stacey Davis Gates, who I want to hear her respond to being called out by Bill Maher on HBO's Real Time about the racial nature of standardized tests. I want to talk about a few other things, but I really want to get Stacey Davis Gates' response to what Bill Maher had to say. And in case you did not hear what Bill Maher had to say calling her out, take a listen.
Standardized testing was dropped until schools saw how dumb that was. And yet, the head of the teachers union in Chicago still maintains that testing is, quote, junk science rooted in white supremacy. And her union tweeted during COVID, when many Americans felt we could have gotten back to normal sooner, that the push to reopen schools is rooted in sexism, racism, and misogyny. No, it was rooted in reading, writing, and arithmetic. The teaching of which is apparently job none in Chicago, because only about 1 in 4 students in the city are proficient in either math or English, and absenteeism is off the charts. The teachers there want a raise now, and look, I'm always all for all teachers always getting a raise everywhere. I hate kids. I can't imagine being around them all day.
I'm Tavis Smiley, and Stacey Davis Gates joins us right now. Stacey, good to have you back on the program. How are you today? Stacy, let's try it again. Can you hear me now? Stacy, your mute button may be pushed.
Hey,
there we go.
And it was.
It
How
happens.
are you?
Yeah, you see how good I am, how fast I am at this. You do it enough every day. You know somebody's mute button is pushed, waiting to come on live. So I'm good. How are you?
Good. Just talking to you, and apparently y'all couldn't hear, but I'm doing very well. Thank you for having me again.
No, it's good to have you back. So we've been busy, obviously, with all this political news of late. I wanted to get to this piece a few days ago. I'm glad I finally got you on the program. But I wanted to play for the audience, and we just did, what Bill Maher had to say about you. And I want to just jump in and get your read. We can get to what Bill had to say. But I guess the place to start may be your take on the racialized nature of standardized tests. We can unpack what Bill had to say as we move through this half hour.
Well, it's not my take. It is a well-researched take on the impact, the origin, the use of, and the impact of standardized testing. These are all things that are well understood, especially in higher ed. Standardized tests were, basically cultivated at Stanford University. Instruments that routinely have a disparate and disproportionate impact on Black people. You got to wonder why people don't want to talk in facts but want to talk in hyperbole. I don't know how to debate the truth, and I don't know how to debate facts.
What then would be your read for why persons like Bill Maher would push back on something that is so well documented as you just laid out?
Well, because it serves as a gatekeeper. We know that standardized tests have been used in governmental policy to shape military inclusion. So we know that these standardized tests have been used to understand how far up the ladder, Black service people can go. This is documented. Number two, we know that they are used to rank and sort students in schools, and we know that they're used to rank and sort schools. Here in Chicago, most prominently, they were used to rank and sort schools to put them on school closings lists, basically saying that the test scores, would indicate whether or not the schools were worth resourcing, funding, and keeping closed. And what we've experienced here in Chicago is that those tests were used not to bring in more support, not to bring in more resources, not to even create assessment instruments that are most aligned with less bias and more parity. We didn't get that. We got schools closed and Black teachers fired. And so when you are looking at the use of standardized instruments like this, you have to look at the impact. So if I'm wrong, is the impact wrong? Here in Chicago, Rahm Emanuel closed 50 schools at the same time. All 50 were majority Black, the largest number of Black schools ever closed in the history of this country. And the infrastructure of that argument were standardized test scores.
I want to unpack that when we come forward. And I also want to ask whether or not Stacey Davis Gates believes there is any value whatsoever, any value to standardized tests. Just getting started. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
Generous listening.
Charitable listening.
It's why everybody wants to talk to Tavis. The conversation continues when we come forward.
Make a move into a home of your own. With City National Bank's Ladder Up Home Loan Grant, you could receive up to $20,000 that you never need to pay back. Use it toward your down payment, save on closing costs, or to buy down your mortgage rate. Find out more at cnb.com/ladderuphome. City National, here for every stage of the journey. Property must be in a qualifying market in California, New York, or New Jersey. Additional terms and conditions apply. Not all applicants will qualify. Terms are subject to change without notice. City National Bank is an equal housing lender. Member FDIC. NMLS number 536994.
Moments like making my kids my famous meatballs mean a lot to me. But after being diagnosed with metastatic breast cancer, or MBC, which is breast cancer that has spread to other parts of the body, they mean even more. I take Ibrance, palbociclib.
Ibrance 125 milligram tablets with an aromatase inhibitor is for adults with HR-positive, HER2-negative MBC as the first hormonal-based therapy. Ask your doctor about Ibrance and visit Ibrance.com. Ibrance may cause low white blood cell counts that may lead to serious infections. Ibrance may cause severe inflammation of the lungs. Both of these can lead to death.
Tell your doctor right away if you have new or worsening symptoms, including trouble breathing, shortness of breath, cough, or chest pain. Before taking Ibrance, tell your doctor if you have fever, chills, or other signs of infection, liver or kidney problems, are or plan to become pregnant, or are breastfeeding. Common side effects include low red blood cell and low platelet counts, infections, tiredness, nausea, sore mouth, abnormalities in liver blood tests, diarrhea, hair thinning or loss, vomiting, rash, and loss of appetite.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. LA County's new Justice Care and Opportunities Department, or JCOD, is here to support justice-involved individuals and their families. The JCOD Support Center is now taking calls at 1-833-LACJCOD. That's 1-833-522-5263. Available 7 days a week from 6 a.m. to 11 p.m., the Support Center is your one-stop shop for re-entry issues and court support. They offer court reminders, connections to local services, transportation assistance for housing, court appearances, and childcare. The JCOD hotline provides personalized help to connect you with services that you need. And don't forget to check out justiceconnect.org for more information. Remember, it's free and available every day at 1-833-522-5263. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Let's get back to more of this rich dialogue with Tavis Smiley.
Tavis Smiley and Stacey Davis Gates, who's the president of the CTU, Chicago Teachers Union. In case you've just tuned in, Bill Maher had some comments to make about her and her union some days ago on Real Time on HBO, and I wanted to give Stacey a chance to respond to Bill's take about these standardized tests in America. Stacey, you didn't get a chance to, I want to come back to this right quick. You didn't get a chance to give me the takeaway. I remember this story well. But what are the takeaways from Rahm Emanuel as mayor having closed those 50 black schools?
The basis of the closure of those 50 black schools were not the fact that they were in neighborhoods that had been historically deprived of city, state, county resources. Those neighborhoods, look, Chicago is legally segregated. It really operates on an apartheid-like system. If you go south of Roosevelt Road here in the city, your life expectancy diminishes between 10 to 20 years than that of the people who live north of Roosevelt Road. That math is typically seen where white middle-class families reside, and south of Roosevelt Road is where black, working-class, middle-class, and, our brothers and sisters who are, experiencing poverty where they live as well. And so this idea that they even had to use those instruments for justification only exacerbates how they are used as harmful tools. And again, this isn't new. We experienced this in the ranking and sorting of black soldiers during the World Wars, the first one being the First World War. These are things that I think as a history teacher are very well understood. And so the continuous use of them in this way leads me only to believe that, most of mainstream may be comfortable with the impacts that the standardized tests give in terms of its exclusion. Now, listen to me when I say I'm a history teacher. I didn't say we don't assess students. Mm-hmm. I didn't say we don't assess their work. You don't standardize that assessment. The only way that you can standardize that assessment is if you standardize the living conditions, you standardize the economic conditions, you standardize the social conditions of those who are taking the same test. You cannot give a standardized test to people who are living in very disparate situations.
So my read of your comment now, which answers the question I think I wanted to ask a moment ago, and that is whether or not it is your view that standardized tests have any value whatsoever, or were they a bad idea when they were thought of?
Well, I mean, look, it has eugenics origins. If you go back and study the origins of standardized testing, you will see a lot of scientists who dealt with Darwinism and made justifications for it and made instruments like standardized tests and IQ tests that helped to mirror their belief in the eugenics. And we do know, too, that that philosophy that produced those instruments have had an exclusionary and harmful and very racialized impact on black people in particular, from the U.S. Army to the U.S. school system.
So to your earlier point, when you said "hear me well," I am not suggesting that we don't assess students. We just don't assess them in that way. So, what are
it's not just that we don't assess them in that way, Tavis. Again, standardization is standardization. You give me a standardized test. The inputs also have to be standardized.
Sure.
You have to standardize the inputs in order to fairly evaluate the outputs on that standardization. And so we are quick to give children whose school communities have been deprived of resources the same standardized instrument that you give to students who have not been deprived of those resources. Right now in the Chicago public schools, 80% of our schools do not have librarians or libraries. The vast majority of those school communities are both South Side and West Side, where the vast majority of black children attend those schools. So you can't tell me that there's standardization in what we are providing, and then we use that same output to judge whether or not these young people have achieved or those school communities are of value.
I take your point. I was just about to ask, what then does your experience suggest to you about the best ways, best practices for assessing those students?
Oh, that's a wonderful question. I actually think that there are a variety of ways that people's work is assessed. We often separate assessment and evaluation from what we experience as adults. We all have assessments. We all have evaluations. What I would say are those evaluations and assessments connected to the actual work that you are doing. Do they chart progress and growth? Are the instruments able to project growth over time? Do they also combine itself with the inputs, like what's going in there? And then how are we assessing on a very regular cycle? Standardized tests do not give you the benefit of reflection in the moment. Standardized tests don't give you the benefit of understanding if your inputs are actually making a difference. What we do know about standardized tests, and this is something that we know over and over again in its impact, that if your family makes money, if you are upper middle class to wealthy, you score well. Even if you're black, you score well. Now, you still score below the white children, but you still score better than most because of your economic situation. We know that it is tied racially and economically. Those are the results that we know. We also know in the field of education that learning and the assessment of learning comes in a variety of ways. But if you don't have a library or a librarian, if you don't have the privilege of an art class, a music class, a physical education class, then the opportunity for assessment and evaluation is greatly narrowed, and the stand-in is often the standardized test.
I'm getting a bunch of questions. I want to read this one because this one is on the way to where I'm going with this conversation. So since we're on the way, let me read this one, Stacey, and give you a chance to respond, and we'll continue on our journey. Question: does Stacey feel let down by certain Democrats and folks like Bill Maher because it gives fuel to the Betsy DeVoses of the world who are trying to destroy public education so they don't have to pay for it anymore?
Woo, that is a question. Yes, I do. Look, Rahm Emanuel, neoliberals like Rahm Emanuel, Arnie Duncan, They set up this platform that we have now, which use standardized tests to penalize Black communities, because that has been the impact. You fire the teachers in those schools, you replace them with a younger, whiter, more female staff. Children are labeled. They're dispersed away from their neighborhoods. On average, Black children in this city travel at least in half an hour to a school outside of their neighborhood after the 50 schools closed here in the city. So absolutely, I think that neoliberal Democrats provided the platform, the basis, and the infrastructure of what we are up against now. I've often said that Betsy DeVos may be who she is, but Arnie Duncan is her cousin in terms of how the policies have rolled out and how they've impacted. Now, where Project 2025 and this new administration gets a bit more diabolical is that they want to do away with the Department of Education. The Obama administration just wanted us to compete for resources. This new administration coming back doesn't even want us to compete for resources. They just want to do away with them. They want school vouchers, which will pull money from the public pot for everyone and send them to, private spaces that may or may not be subsidized in this way. So it still leaves out your working class families. It leaves out your families that are existing below the poverty level. And public education, quite frankly, is the idea of the Negro. Look, it is interesting that we are having this conversation right now, because if you go back, if there is ever a time period in history to identify with in this moment, it is Reconstruction. Black Reconstruction. In fact, I've told everyone in my circle, if you really want to understand now, reread W.E.B. Du Bois's Black Reconstruction, because what it does is that it sets up this idea of Black people having a demand of government, that creates a safety net, not just for us, though, for everyone. So you get public health, you get public education, you get public housing, you get these ideas that America can provide for the least of these, and not just the Black least of these. This is the basis under which we get the public in health, the public in education. And so being able to, fight for a thing, secure a thing, and then the boogeyman comes and begins to tell other people that you're getting more because you need help. And then it becomes this mad dash to scapegoat, to racialize, to withdraw those resources, withdraw those services and support from the very people who need it most.
You said a few things I want to follow up on, and just watching my time here. I said we're on the way somewhere. Stacy just got out of the car and ran ahead of me to where we were going about Project 2025 and the interest that some have in abolishing the Department of Education. So she's already there. I'll catch up to her in just a second. Before I do that, though, she said something else I want to give her a chance to sound off on right quick, and that is this notion of equity. Now, we know that ultimately this conversation ought to be about equity in education, not even so much about equality. Can you ever imagine us getting to that conversation, the conversation about equity?
Not in my lifetime, and I turn 48 in another month. But no, I do not think it will be in my lifetime, unfortunately. And that is probably the most disappointing impact of, a couple of weeks ago for me. Look, we can go back and forth on ideology. We can go back and forth on platform. What we can't go back and forth on is that a man with 34 felonies was reelected after, a circus of a first term, to put it mildly, to be reelected against a person whose credentials, stand up second to none, whose, jaunt in the White House, provided the most money to public education than ever before, one of the most labor-friendly, administrations we've ever seen in the history of this country. These things mean something, and yet they didn't. And so the question is why? Yeah.
So I had the Secretary of Education on this program a few weeks ago. I'll tell you a story that I wouldn't normally say publicly, but I think it fits nicely in this conversation. If I get in trouble, so be it. They're about to be out of office anyway, so it won't really matter in a couple days. But I had recently, Stacy, the Secretary of Education, on this program, and I was asking him. I said, I know that you're not on the campaign trail. You are still in your position. I'm not trying to make you political, but I do want to ask you, as the Education Secretary, what would happen if, in fact, this other guy got elected, which he did, and he held true to his commitment to abolish the Department of Education? You would have thought that I asked a question that was, I mean, I'm sitting in the studio and I've got all kind of devices in front of me. I've got computers, I've got phones, and so my producers are yelling at me over the phone, over the computer, to not ask this question because his staffers are going berserk. So for those of you who heard this conversation, you remember this. His staffers were going berserk that I was asking him this question, and I pressed forward. My point was this: who better to ask that question of than the Secretary of the Department of Education? What would happen if, in fact, somebody got into office and we abolished the Department of Education? They were just being all in their feelings about these lines being crossed, and no lines were crossed. And thankfully, he answered the question, and I received his answer. I come back to that story now because I'm curious as to whether or not you think that Donald Trump and those who support Project 2025 are really serious when they talk about abolishing the Department of Education, and more to the point, if they did that, what does that look like? What's that mean, Stacey?
Well, the first thing that I would say is that I take him at his word. Okay. You know, there are so many examples of president-elect, saying something, the Muslim ban, the ICE raids. These are all things that he said he was going to do, and he did those. So I don't know why we would not take him at his word when he says he's going to do something. And on top of that, he comes into this term with way more understanding and infrastructure than he did the previous term. He has federal judges. He has more federal judges that could potentially agree with him. He will have a House of Representatives and a Senate. He will have a Supreme Court. So he comes in quite the strong man, this time. So, again, believe him. The second thing that I would say about this is that, the U.S. Department of Education has been a lightning rod since Jimmy Carter said that this is what we were going to do. What was it, in 79? Going into 80, that we were going to separate the Department of Education from Health and Human Services and provide a space in which, to allow Title I monies, to flow into communities that needed them, to make sure that Head Start was available, especially for, working class and families that are living below the poverty level. These things represented opportunity in the way that former President Carter presented them. They represented opportunity when LBJ began the programs, as a part of the Great Society, in which he said you needed to do two things. You needed to address the disparity in civil rights, and you needed to give, those same individuals an opportunity for education and jobs that paid a fair wage. And so that still hasn't changed, and that is still in the crosshairs of people like Donald Trump. Remember, these are not new ideas. The roots of Project 2025 can be traced back to the Reagan administration and can be traced back to the ideas of Lee Atwood, who created the Southern Strategy.
Yep. I got 30 seconds left. Quick question from another listener. Tavis, what does this conversation with you and Stacey mean if kids still can't read at grade level? What's it all mean?
Listen, here's the first thing. We focus on the output as we should, and we have to focus on the input. When I say 80% of our schools do not have libraries and librarians, and then you tell me about a literacy rate, I'm going to say those two things are connected. Yep. You can't get something for nothing. You have to put something in the gas tank in order for the car to go down the street. And so if we want children to read, then we will have libraries and librarians. If we want a literacy rate to go up, then we will lower class sizes and make early childhood interventions the standard and not the exception.
Not one to hold her tongue, and I love it. She's the president of CTU, Chicago Teachers Union, Stacey Davis Gates. Stacey, good to have you back on. Happy holidays to you, and happy early birthday, by the way.
Hey, I appreciate it, and honored as always to share a discussion with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Stacey. More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
Why does Tavis say when we come forward?
Because he's not going back.
And you don't have to go back either. Forward ever, backward never. More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
Paid for by government.com. Did you know? The United States Mint has issued a new Morgan silver dollar coin in proof condition for the first time. Not only that, they are also minted in 99.9% pure silver for the first time ever in history. Coin experts are calling this an amazing opportunity for anyone that knows the enduring popularity of Morgans. But you must hurry. Only 400,000 of these legal tender silver dollars were issued. These first ever Morgan silver dollars are brand new with stunning mirror-like finish, minted by the iconic San Francisco Mint. Call now and you're guaranteed a new first ever 99.9% pure silver proof Morgan dollar. To learn more, call 1-800-973-9717. If you order now, you will receive a free coin collector bonus pack, a $25 value, free with every order. Call 1-800-973-9717 now to secure your new Morgan silver dollars before they are gone. That's 1-800-973-9717.
I'm Bree Wood with 4 things you should know from BIN News. At least 1 person is dead and 8 more injured following a shooting in New Orleans. The New Orleans Police Department is investigating the incident, which took place during the 9-time Social Aid and Pleasure Club Second Line Parade event, as a homicide. The Palm Springs, California City Council voted unanimously on Thursday to approve nearly $6 million in reparations for Black and Latino families forced out of their homes in the late 1950s and 60s. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffrey says the Democratic Party needs to find out why its messaging wasn't resonating with working-class voters this election cycle. Jeffries told NBC's Meet the Press the country's economic hardships have undermined faith in the American dream, and Democrats are committed to addressing those concerns moving forward. And the next test flight of the SpaceX Starship rocket could launch as soon as today. If there aren't any delays, the massive 400-foot rocket could lift off this evening from the SpaceX Starbase near Brownsville, Texas. Get BIN News on demand 24/7 at BINnews.com.
Hi, I'm Kyle at Blindster.com. Blindster is a family-run business that began in 2010, and we've sold millions of custom blinds, shades, and shutters and received over 100,000 five-star reviews. Don't hire an expensive pro. Do it yourself and save big at Blindster.com.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
It was a good day Sunday for both of LA's NFL teams. We start with the Chargers. They got a 29-yard touchdown run from running back J.K. Dobbins with 18 seconds left in the fourth quarter to get past Cincinnati 34-27. The Chargers are 7-3 for the first time since 2018. The Rams are 5-5 after a 28-22 road win at New England. Clippers guard James Harden is now number 2 on the NBA's all-time list for three-pointers. Harden hit 2 three-pointers last night in the Clippers' win over Utah to move past Ray Allen. The 35-year-old Harden has 2,975 three-pointers. Steph Curry has the record with 3,782. Curry and the Warriors are in town tonight to play the Clippers at the Intuit Dome. Top 5 college football teams in this week's AP Top 25 poll: Oregon, Ohio State, Texas, Penn State, and Tavis Smiley's Indiana Hoosiers. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, I'm Ray Richardson, your sports connection here at KBLA Talk 1580. Join me and my co-host Neil Scarborough every Saturday night at 7 for Out of Bounds, the show that brings some flavor to the world of sports for 60 minutes. We take you beyond the scores and press conferences. We give you our point of view, the way black folks see what's going down. You can join the conversation and give us your analysis at 1-800-920-1580. Out of Bounds every Saturday night at 7 on KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
You like the style, though.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
It's Mattress Firm's Black Friday sale. Get matched with your perfect bed and save up to $700 on a wide selection of quality mattresses. Plus, score a free adjustable base with a qualifying purchase. See store for details.
Moments like making my kids my famous meatballs mean a lot to me. But after being diagnosed with metastatic breast cancer, or MBC, which is breast cancer that has spread to other parts of the body, they mean even more. I take Ibrance, palbociclib.
Ibrance 125 milligram tablets with an aromatase inhibitor is for adults with HR-positive, HER2-negative NBC as the first hormonal-based therapy. Ask your doctor about Ibrance and visit Ibrance.com. Ibrance may cause low white blood cell counts that may lead to serious infections. Ibrance may cause severe inflammation of the lungs. Both of these can lead to death. Tell your doctor right away if you have new or worsening symptoms, including trouble breathing, shortness of breath, cough, or chest pain. Before taking Ibrance, tell your doctor if you have fever, chills, or other signs of infection, liver or kidney problems, are or plan to become pregnant, or are breastfeeding. Common side effects include low red blood cell and low platelet counts, infections, tiredness, nausea, sore mouth, abnormalities in liver blood tests, diarrhea, hair thinning or loss, vomiting, rash, and loss of appetite.
Sometimes he fails at fitting in.
But we're okay with that.
You're inside the Tavis Smiley Show.
You are indeed, as promised now, a conversation about Baltimore City. Baltimore City is the latest municipality to form a reparations commission. Please be joined now by Dr. Ray Winbush, director of the Institute for Urban Research at Morgan State University, a fine HBCU, and author of the book, Should America Pay? Slavery and the Raging Debate About Reparations. Dr. Winbush, good to have you on this program, sir. How are you today?
I'm doing fine, Tavis. Good to see you.
Man,
good to hear you.
It's good to hear you too, man, and good to have you on the program. Let me just jump right in. No naivete here. How does Ray Winbush answer the question in the text, should America pay?
Well, the answer is a one-word answer, yes. There's a debt owed by this country that is at least 400 years, and I'm not being rhetorical about it. And reparations are, as I've said before, as American as apple pie. Native Americans have received them, and rightly so. Japanese received them because of their internment, and rightly so. Jewish people have received them, and rightly so, because of the Holocaust. African Americans have not. And so reparations is something that, is American as apple pie, but we have not received them, and that's what it's all about. That's what the whole move is about.
Yep. As I mentioned a moment ago, Baltimore City, one of the latest municipalities to establish a reparations commission. What's your read of the ways in which this movement is gaining steam by the day at the local level in municipalities, but stalled essentially at the federal level? What's your takeaway from that?
Well, I've always said, and when the late Congressman John Conyers, put his bill forward, H.R. 40 in 1989, I always thought that it was going to be a bubble up rather than a top down type of movement. That's why it is stalled in Congress. But on the local level, as you point out, the states like California, which that's a whole nother story, but Maryland, I think, did it correctly. New York right now is just passed a reparations bill to establish commissions to study. So I think it has always been, it should be a grassroots movement, and that's what we did here in Maryland.
Yep. I want to circle back to Maryland here in a second here, but since you mentioned California, where I sit right now, this program, of course, is heard across the country, and I'm grateful for that, but I sit every day in the studios here in Leimert Park in Los Angeles, and I've been giving Gavin Newsom the business. This audience knows, locally and nationally. I was so disappointed in Governor Newsom with regard to reparations in this last session of our legislature. That's me. From where you sit in Maryland, watching as the nation was, what was happening in California and expecting this to be sort of a breakthrough. I've said many times, what happens in California politics either cast a long shadow or a long sunbeam. What we thought was going to be a long sunbeam turned into a long shadow, and Gavin Newsom is at the center of that when it comes to the blame. But how did you read what happened in California sitting in Maryland?
Well, we read it as being the commission being totally politicized by outside groups, such as ADOS and the freedmen, as they call themselves, and others. I don't want to mention the person's name, but I testified before the commission in California, in fact, about this so-called lineage stuff. Newsom could have done this an entirely different way. He should have appointed a commission, but he should have had more governance over it. And really, and I'm going to just say this, I think that he knew this was going to fail, or it was going to be so politicized that it would never get through the legislature out there or anything else like that. We here in Maryland, we studied what was going on in California and wanted to make sure we didn't make the same mistake. We have the country's only black governor, but we made sure that the legislature was on board, as well as the governor was on board when we got the Cannabis Reform Act of 2023 passed. He didn't do that in California. Well, it's a long, complicated story, but I don't want to get too far into the weeds, but he could have been more active in seeing that the commission really was going to advocate for and pass legislation for reparations in the state.
Well, that's all politics.
And he didn't do that.
Well, that's all politics, as you well know. You can say one thing, you can do one thing, but we know what your real intent is. I'll leave that, as my grandmother say, Big Mama, we're going to leave that lay where the good Lord done flung it. I'm going to leave it right where it is. But you take my point, as does this audience. It's one thing to say something, it's one thing to do something, but it's another thing for us to really see what your true intent is. And oftentimes it's just about playing politics with people's lives, and I digress on that for now. Let me just ask you this, since we were talking about the federal level a moment ago. What's your sense of how, with regard to this conversation, history is going to regard or not what Joe Biden did and did not do on reparations? There was so much more he could have done. And there's no question about the fact that symbolically, Joe Biden may very well be the best president black folk have ever had, symbolically. He put a lot of black faces in high places, far more than Barack Obama. He had a black vice president who he passed the mantle to, yada, yada, yada. He gave us Juneteenth. We weren't even asking for it. He gave us Juneteenth. I mean, symbolically, it's hard to argue what Joe Biden has done. I've said many times, and I think you and I agree on this, I love symbolism. I respect symbolism. Symbolism has its place. I just like substance a whole lot more. Symbolism is nice, but give me some substance. On this issue, Joe Biden gave black America a whole lot of symbolism, but not much substance on the reparations issue. How will history regard that about his presidency?
Well, you know, and the late scholar Derek Bell, legal scholar, used to say that oftentimes black people mistake symbols for substance, and we shouldn't. And the point is, actually, Joe Biden did what Gavin Newsom did. He gave us Juneteenth when we were putting pressure on him. And I'm talking about people in NCOBRA, National Coalition of Blacks for Reparations in America, when they were putting pressure on him, that instead of talking about reparations, do an executive order to forget H.R. 40 in one sense. Do an executive order that would put in a panel or a commission to study reparations. You don't need to have that come out of Congress. He could have done it at the federal level. And when we were putting pressure on him in June 2 years ago, that's when he said, let's give them, you know, Juneteenth. So that's the symbol. The substance was what we wanted him to do, and he reneged on his promise to really look into it.
When we come forward, we'll go straight to Baltimore City and get a better understanding of what Mayor Brandon Scott and others are doing there with regard to their establishing a reparations commission, as Dr. Wimbush and I were just discussing. This thing is stalled at the federal level, essentially, but one by one, city by city, this conversation about reparations is continuing to gain momentum. Baltimore City, again, the latest municipality to set up its own reparations commission. We'll talk about what they intend to do when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
Hope, agency, dignity. This is Tavis Smiley.
Can you dig it? We asked seniors how to prevent Medicare scams.
My best advice, if you get a phone call, do not talk to the person. These people are well trained. Don't talk to them.
They don't know me. They're just trying to scam me.
Don't be fooled. Hang up. Just hang up.
Never give out your Medicare number.
They're going to get your number to put in a false claim.
If I get a call from someone, I don't pick up the phone. And should I pick up the phone and they ask for information, then I hang up.
How do you detect Medicare fraud?
Just like I check my credit card statements, I check my Medicare statements monthly.
Scammers can get a hold of your number, order medical devices through your account, and you're not even going to know about it if you don't look at your statement.
Check your statement every month. If you get your statement and you see something that you know you did not have done, you report it.
Call your senior Medicare Patrol.
To report Medicare fraud, call the Senior Medicare Patrol at 855-613-7080.
Are you an entrepreneur looking to take your business to new heights? KBLA Talk 1580 is your partner in success. Every day, we celebrate and elevate Black-owned businesses across our community. Our KBLA SMB Marketplace currently features The Cookie Dip, Badass Bakes, Hair Concoction, Higher Education Accreditation Consulting, LACC Radiology Technology Department, and Malik Books. Your business deserves to be heard. Let KBLA Talk 1580 amplify your voice and connect you with our powerful community of listeners. Email smb@kbla1580.com today. That's smb@kbla1580.com. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black. KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. If you need help getting your resume in order, finding job training, or landing a job, we've got 3 great options for you. First, the City of Los Angeles has WorkSource centers across the area offering free job support. The California Workforce Development Board can help you with everything from GED prep to vocational training at no cost to you. On the federal level, the Department of Labor's American Job Centers offer a full range of services for job seekers and businesses alike. Visit careeronestop.org, or for more info, just call California's Help Center or visit cwdb.ca.gov or call 916-657-1440. For the City of Los Angeles programs, go to ewdd.lacity.gov or call 213-744-7300. All these services are free to help you get your next job. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Freedom is an endless meeting. So let's get back to it with Tavis Smiley.
Tavis Smiley, Dr. Ray Winbush, who's director of the Institute for Urban Research at Morgan State University and author of the text, Should America Pay? Slavery and the Raging Debate About Reparations. He is one of the members of the newly formed Community Reinvestment and Reparations Commission in Baltimore City. Tell me about this particular commission and what its mandate is in Baltimore, Dr. Winbush. Doc, can you hear me? Can you hear me now? Your mute button may be on, Dr.
Okay,
Winbush.
I can hear you
There
now.
we
I
go.
can hear you. That was my fault. I had you on mute.
I get it.
When the state of Maryland legalized the sale of marijuana, both medical and recreational, the state legislature said that 30% of the sales of marijuana would go to community reinvestment and repair fund to those communities who have been disproportionately impacted by the prohibition and enforcement of cannabis laws.
Mm-hmm.
So Baltimore, because this is a city that's 70% black, we got the lion's share. And we wanted to set up a commission that would not just be a one and done thing, that we would get, $10 million, and then after that, it was gone. So this is an ongoing fund that every year we will get this. The first year allocation, which someone has told me is the largest in the nation, is $13.5 million. Mm-hmm. And we're going to be distributing that to communities for mental health work, a variety of things, people who were on drugs, people who sold drugs and were incarcerated. So it's going for housing, a variety of things. And so the commission of 15 persons, we were sworn in last week, and we're anxious to do our work.
Yeah. I think I'm okay with this. I think I'm okay with it, but I'm gonna be honest with you. I do have thoughts. I do have thoughts.
I know what you're going to say.
Yeah, you know where I'm going, man. You know where I'm going. There's something a little something about using weed sales, the sales of marijuana, to support reparations. Now, I'm thinking of Brother Malcolm, who said by any means necessary. I don't know if Malcolm meant that, by any means necessary. But how? All jokes aside, how should I process? 'Cause I can see two ways into this. How should I process that we're taking the sales off of cannabis to essentially fund reinvestment and reparations? How should I feel about that, Dr. Wimbush?
Well, we talked about that in depth with members of the commission even before we were sworn in.
Mm-hmm.
And you look at the fact that for years, black folk sold weed, and on the so-called war on drugs, I mean, the deep history of that is how much of that was set up by, as we know, people from the CIA on down.
Mm-hmm.
So we looked at that, and we saw all these brothers and sisters incarcerated. Beginning a few years ago, places like Colorado, New York, here in Maryland, when it was legalized, all the licenses were going to white boys. And white girls.
Oh, yeah.
They got rich off of our misery. So, and they got rich off of doing something that we had been doing for years.
Yeah.
But somehow we got punished for it. They became millionaires with it. So we said, okay, let's look at marijuana and take some of that money that they are making and through their quote legal sales of marijuana, and we're going to reinvest it in the community. And that's what we did. We wrestled with the same question.
I expected that to be your answer, and that's why I said I think I'm okay with it, given the harm that's been done to our community over many, many years. Why should there not be some reparative justice done from monies that are now being made legally off of cannabis? I thought that'd be your answer, so no surprise there. Our remaining moments with Dr. Ray Wimbush when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
What's your quarrel with the world? You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
If you're like me, 60 and retired, making ends meet, especially here at the supermarket and drugstore, is tough. I'm so blessed to have found benefitscheckup.org. It's a free and confidential website from the National Council on Aging that connected me to $1,200 a year in programs that help pay for food, medicine, utilities, and more. Maybe it can help you. benefitscheckup.org.
You know where you want to go in life, and City National Bank can help. City National knows the dedication it takes to build your vision for the future into a reality, and our team is here for you. We have a wide range of options to help, from personal savings accounts to interest-bearing money market savings accounts and more, all designed to help you get where you want to go. City National, here for every stage of the journey. Learn more at cnb.com. City National Bank is a subsidiary of Royal Bank of Canada, member FDIC.
KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. The Autopsy Initiative provides a second autopsy free of charge for victims' families who have lost their loved ones due to a police-related death. The services offered through the initiative include the completion of a second autopsy, disclosure of preliminary findings, and a final autopsy report. A police-related death is when an individual is harmed by police officers using deadly force, which results in an individual's death. Police-related death includes in-custody deaths, including those that arise during contact with law enforcement officers during arrest, pursuit, booking, transport, or incarceration. The Autopsy Initiative has a team of board-certified pathologists on call. An autopsy request may be completed by anyone with a close relationship with the victim, which may include the victim's spouse, partner, relative, close friend, or lawyer. To request a free second autopsy for a victim of police violence, please visit knowyourrightscamp.org. knowyourrightscamp.com. That's knowyourrightscamp.com. Then click on autopsy, then click on request. At KBLA, we believe in justice for victims of police violence. We say their names, and we don't black down. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
After you use Bounce Dryer Sheets and realize how fresh, soft, less wrinkled, and less staticky your laundry can be, you'll put a sheet on your every time. Like those socks that smell like they've been through a marathon. Put a sheet on it. Or that blanket that's got wrinkles on its wrinkles. Put a sheet on it. Maybe even your chatty coworker who keeps distracting you. Okay, Bounce Dryer Sheets can't do it all. But for fresher, softer, better laundry, put a sheet on it with Bounce.
Sometimes he fails at fitting in.
But we're okay with that.
You're inside the Tavis Smiley Show.
You are indeed with the director of the Institute for Urban Research at Morgan State University, Dr. Ray Winbush. So, Doc, you mentioned, I thought I heard you say about $13.5 million was the first installment. This will be an annual line item in the budget that takes money off of cannabis sales to use for reinvestment and reparations in the city of Baltimore and in the state of Maryland. Tell me a bit more about how that money is going to be used.
Well, it's going to be used for housing, mental health, and harm reduction. I'm just naming a few.
Sure.
Reentry and reintegration. As you know, Maryland incarcerates more black men than any other state per capita in the union. Entrepreneurship. We're going to fund groups that are, starting off businesses but need that little, help up the stairs to get started. Train community, not only management and support of black folk, but, teaching leadership academies and so forth, and workforce development. So it's going to be used for a variety of things that we feel started in enslavement, continued during the Jim Crow era, and still manifest themselves today in other forms.
Yeah. Let me circle back to where we began this conversation, and that is this notion that this idea of reparations has essentially stalled at the federal level, and you can rest assured ain't gonna be no movement the next 4 years on this issue with Republicans controlling the House and the Senate.
Right.
So there'll be no movement. It ain't just stalled; it's DOA at this point, at least for the next 4 years. So my exit question is then: is this the way? And by this I mean municipalities, city by city, like Baltimore, like Evanston. I could do, as you know, there are many others. Yeah. These cities are coming online across the country, from California to the Carolinas, setting up their own reparations commission task forces and finding innovative ways, like you all have found in Baltimore and in Maryland, to get money to people that deserve it, people who have earned it. Is this the way, the municipal route?
Well, I think so. And I think it's not only going to be the municipal route. I think these commissions ought to be set up at the state level like California tried to do. I'm working with the New York Commission right now. I think they're going the right way. And also in Evanston, at the local level as well. But I think the local level, I've always felt that the bubble-up process, the grassroots movement, would pass reparations rather than this top-down federal stuff. Yeah. That, as you just said, you get a change of administration, you put it on hold for another 4 years.
That's right. It was the late great Speaker of the House, Tip O'Neill, who once said that all politics is local. That applies here, that all politics is local. Congratulations to Mayor Brandon Scott and the 9 members of his newly formed Community Reinvestment and Reparations Commission for Baltimore City. Dr. Ray Winbush is a member of that commission. He is also the director of the Institute for Urban Research at Morgan State and author of the text, Should America Pay? Slavery and the Raging Debate About Reparations. That debate will rage on for the next 4 years, or maybe not so much rage over the next 4 years, but we shall see what happens in the months and years to come. But the municipal route, the state route, as we just both agreed, might be the way. Dr. Winbush, good to have you on, sir. All the best to you and the commission. Thank you for your time, sir.
Thank you, Tavis. Take care.
Good to have you on. More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
KBLA and Pleasure Club Second Line Parade event as a homicide. The Palm Springs, California City Council voted unanimously on Thursday to approve nearly $6 million